When the system is fucked, fuck the system. Hi, welcome to another episode of Adlib with Liv. I'm your host, and today's episode is a little bit heavier, and it's going to be a commentary on what's happening in the world right now, socially and politically. I'm going to apply my lens of intimacy and connection that I've talked about in the last few episodes to what's happening systemically in the United States of America and beyond. Because what happens in the US and the US's involvement in social and political conversations is global. The United States does not operate in a silo. It is a country that impacts every other country globally. Now, I know this, you know this, and so understanding how our connection to intimacy and awareness of self and awareness of our environments and our relationships and within our community, we can't be in intimate connection to any of that without also being connected to what's happening around the world. And those are just the times that we live in. And I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not saying it's comfortable. In fact, I would say that now more than ever, there is this really insane demand of our attention and our energy, because we can't live in a silo not paying attention to what's happening outside of our town, our communities, our states, our countries. We have access to all of it through media, through social media, through television, through film, through radio, through podcast. We are virtually, globally connected. And that means that we are being asked to hold space for so much in every single moment. It's why taking breaks from social media is critical. It's why being regulated and healthy in our own bodies and minds is critical. Because without that, it is a system of overwhelm. And that's partly what I want to talk about today. I had a moment over the weekend where I just felt this buildup, like almost like I had something stuck in my throat. And the only way I could do that was to sit down and write. And I have to say, it was hard to write this. And this is going to be one of maybe 3 parts, maybe 3 episodes, could be longer, I don't know. Depends on how much I really want to process here in this space with you and on the podcast. But it brought up so much emotion and frustration and disappointment and fear. And then at the end, it also brought a little bit of relief, because using my voice and using my pen have always been important for me. And I also believe that it's something that we all can do. We can all speak, we can all write, we can all share in some capacity. And I felt a little bit of relief from getting this out, and then also some like activation of like, okay, what's next? You know, what else can I dig into? Because this is just the tip of the iceberg. So I also want to say that I have been paying attention to a lot of creators and journalists and writers and commentators online to gather some of this information that I'm sharing here. I have really learned so much from other people online and from different news sources and different writers and creators. So I just want to say that in the midst of all of this information that we have access to, it's a blessing and a curse, because it can feel so overwhelming. But one thing that I did to help my brain kind of organize and understand all this ridiculous amounts of info, I have a folder that just is titled Protest. And in that folder, every time I'm scrolling and I come across something that's educational or focusing on an element of, social political issues of, how to engage, or it's teaching something, I put it in the protest folder, and then I can go back through and really tune into those voices and what they have to say. And, of course, they're just snapshots of a bigger picture and conversation, which is why I put this piece together to try to make sense of everything. And then in the midst of making sense of things, you guys, I felt so like just in the dark web of it all. I was like, this is so much, and it's so heavy, and it's so vast, and it's so deep, and it's so painful, like what's happening when you really sit with it. And then I also kind of tried to extract some main talking points And for me, I'm keeping it really broad in this first conversation here. And I'm bringing it back to the theme of intimacy and awareness, which the last few episodes I put out were all about. And the last few episodes were really light, and they were about how to create intimacy in your everyday lifestyle through the food you eat, your transportation, the relationships you build, the hobbies and habits you hold, and our relationship to technology. And is it bringing us into intimacy, or is it taking us away from intimacy with ourselves and with other people as well? So very like compelling topics for me. I think that stuff is so interesting, and it's all about like living a life like closer to the bone and really getting to be connected to all of your like lived experiences and all of life's rich moments and also challenging moments. And so taking that lens and putting it to this felt really clear to me, because I think in order to be someone who's actively engaged in these conversations, you have to be willing to get really close and intimate with uncomfortable things and truths that are unsettling. These conversations are meant to provoke dialogue and thought. The realist acts of intimacy, sexuality, spirituality, relationships are all necessary to create a life that brings you closer to yourself, to people, and to nature. But lately, I have realized that intimacy is the gateway, the beginning of the opening. It is the threshold that is meant to bring us into harmony and well-being with ourselves and the collective. If intimacy is awareness, then we must practice the art of being aware of the beauty and the hellish injustice that describes humanity. With social media, DoorDash, and Netflix, it really can feel like life exists on our screens and in the comfort of our spaces, away from the injustices happening outside of our door. Just because we can disconnect from the suffering of people in the Congo and Palestine by way of turning the channel or changing the subject or ordering another polyester garment, it is still happening. People continue to suffer, and it is far more connected than we are led to believe. Awareness is knowing that the naturally occurring cobalt beneath the Earth's crust is used to craft our smartphones, laptops, and electric vehicles, and is mainly sourced from the Democratic Republic of Congo, where human conditions are nothing less than modern-day slavery. Cobalt is toxic, and yet mothers with babies on their backs breathe it in daily in subhuman working conditions. Awareness is recognizing that the one-click Amazon purchases of single-use products and Shein's fast fashion wardrobes that are always in style and rapidly filling in landfills is an addiction that is burying us. Paperback books will disintegrate before the heads of Barbie dolls ever do. Human legacy becomes plastic instead of poetry. Awareness is knowing that the films I watched in my 20s about power, prostitution, human trafficking, and cannibalism were really art mimicking life in the most grotesque ways. The Epstein files are not showing us the worst of the worst, even though that feels impossible. The files are being released to us deliberately to put us in a psychological trance. They are activating the primal brain that responds with rage, obsession, and eventually collapse. This is a strategy that keeps us in a state of spinning and searching for understanding amidst redacted documents released randomly. It's not sloppy, though. It's intentional. You either stay engaged or disengage completely. It is warfare on our nervous systems, and when we are dysregulated, we cannot rage against the machine. Awareness is recognizing how ICE, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, is rooted in racism, control of the masses, and censorship. And it is not a Republican organization. Democrats are equally responsible for the harm ICE causes. ICE has continued to be funded by both red and blue presidents, just have different performance tactics to talk about it. One is anti-immigrant and the other co-ops protest. Republicans provide the spectacle of cruelty, but Democrats provide the infrastructure. Anyone who gets in their way will die, as we have seen, because it is 2026 and the revolution and the corruption are televised. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security requests Google, Reddit, Instagram, and Facebook to provide names, phone numbers, and other identifying information of users who criticize ICE. They are tracking who speaks up. They are threatening freedom of speech, and they are doing it as I write this. It's been so hard to see what's been happening to other American citizens in the United States, to see what's happened to immigrants in the United States, who are people, who are a part of the mass immigration that quite literally is the world that we live in. The globe, the planet, Mother Earth is immigration. We all came from somewhere else, unless we were indigenous and from that land from the beginning of our lineage. But the crazy thing is we've been taught that it's okay to come from somewhere else and steal their land and then hold up a flag and say, this is our land. This is our country. Stay proud. What is there to be proud of? Awareness is understanding the insane effort by governments to distract us from the ecological disaster we are in. We are officially entering a global water bankruptcy. In the next few years, the United Nations has said we will start running out of clean drinking water, and eventually it will be privatized and controlled. Water was never meant to be sold. But we are reaching closer and closer to that reality. And there are already millions of people in the world who do not have access to clean drinking water and are dying because of it. But keep making ChatGPT portraits of your cat and watering your pristinely green golf courses. Awareness is recognizing that all of the signs to hell were written by Israel. And there isn't enough time in the day to dig into why. Awareness is the practice of presence and paying attention. It's paying attention to who wrote that post, who funded that news organization, who's sponsored, whose perspective is bought and controlled. Awareness of the moment creates intimacy and connection to our children, to our family, to the nature around us, to the work that we pour ourselves into, to the art that we create. Being intimate with life is a gift, and it can sometimes be confronting. If you're paying attention, you will see that we are all Palestine, that your children are no different than the children in Gaza, waking up with the same hope of existing in peace, playing in safety. And if you're not pro-Palestine, you are anti-human, and at the very least, a fucking racist. Because at the core, intimacy is the wisdom that we are all equal down to the last breath that we take and the red we bleed. For those who cannot acknowledge the facts that we are humans first, and all of the other hierarchical, classist, racist, and segregated perspectives are actually just constructs that can be dismantled just as they were assembled. The ones who take us away from that reality of connection, those are the ones who manipulate, abuse, steal, rape, and oppress anyone who challenges their skewed and sick view of existence. If you care about Palestine, congratulations, you are not dead inside. For those of you who have changed the channel, ignored the stats, blocked the journalists, and spat the words, "What about Israel?" I fear you have drank the poison of the oppressor, and you are in fact a part of the problem. Intimacy is sitting with the truth, engaging in polarizing conversations, asking further questions even when they give you an answer and expect you to be pleased with it. The only positive thing I can focus on with all of this new information around the Epstein files and understanding the connection that Israel has to all of it, to the brands that we buy, to the food that we consume, to the news that we read, is that we are now seeing what's been behind the curtain. I do believe there's still so much more, but we are really having to confront it because it's the information that we have now is global. It's in the palm of our hands. We cannot get rid of it. It's sitting in front of us, whether we want to believe it or not, whether we feel safe enough in our bodies to actually hold it or not. It is there for us to look at and to do something with. We are seeing that the people in power were never about the collective. We are starting to decode the theatrics that were once used for the most influential elite people to hide behind. What has been buried is now becoming visible. We are being made aware. The system thrives on silencing victims and crowning pedophiles. What happens if we all say something? If we all say hell no to the genocide in Palestine, to the ICE agents killing people in cold blood in our city streets, to pulling the trigger and pressing that big red button to cause wars in every other country? What happens when we say something, when we vote differently, what happens when we recognize that the system that we all are players in is built on something that morally most of us wouldn't agree with? These are the questions for myself. These are my questions for you. I know so many of you are already so engaged and thinking about this and asking how to be involved and are sharing things online and have businesses that promote this type of thinking and organizations that challenge these systems. And I am so glad to see all of the rhetoric that's happening around protest and around saying fuck no to these injustices and the harm that's being caused to so many people. I don't have the answers, but I do have a space to share and express and provoke. And I do want to use that space in this way. So for the next 2 episodes, we'll talk about the importance of discernment in these chaotic times of mass information, and that protest through community is a healing and healthy response to what's going on. And it's something we can do every day. Thank you so much for joining me today, and make sure to subscribe and you'll receive a notification when the next episodes drop. And make sure to take care of yourself.